السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا ونبينا محمد ذي القدر العظيم والفضل الجسيم وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Alhamdulillah, in our lessons on تعليم المتعلم طرق التعلم or طريق التعلم by Imam Zarnuji on how to seek Islamic knowledge, we have reached lesson number 3, and we're going to begin by looking at the choice of teacher, a choice of knowledge, teacher, partners, and remaining firm on the path of knowledge, and remaining firm on the path of knowledge. And this contains very focused and dense advice. So we'll take it as has come, but this is one of those chapters that are really foundational, that he's told us about the importance of knowledge, importance of intention in knowledge. So now you know the purpose of studying and the intention behind studying. Now study. To study, you need to know what to study and whom to study with as teachers. But you also need companions. And if you begin, the human being's been created weak. خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا. So you need to remain consistent upon it. وَالثَّبَاتَ عَلَيْهِ. So he shares invaluable counsel regarding all of this. So he says, فَصْلٌ فِي اخْتِيَارِ الْعِلْمِ وَالْأُسْتَاذِ وَالشَّرِيكِ وَالثَّبَاتِ عَلَيْهِ. The chapter on choosing the knowledge, the teacher, the companion, and remaining firm thereupon. So he begins with the first key point, which is, he says, ينبغي لطالب العلم أن يختار من كل علم أحسنه وما يحتاج إليه في أمر دينه في الحال ثم ما يحتاج إليه في المآل. So he begins by giving us a key guiding principle. This applies to the Muslim in general, right, who's seeking knowledge, للمعاد, to quote the lines that we referred, that you're seeking knowledge for the hereafter. This is not curiosity, and this is not just interest. Right? You may be interested in something, but if it's not good for you, you leave it. Right? You may come to Istanbul and realize that, you know what, doner kebab is fascinating. I want to learn how exactly they put that rotating thing. You're interested, but it's not from what you need in the hereafter. So you may leave the doner unless you're starting your own business. So it befits to choose from each knowledge what is the best of it. How do you choose the best of it? The best of it in itself is what you need immediately. Right? So what you need in your religious affairs at present. And this is one of the challenges for a student of knowledge, that we've seen that the knowledge that you need is this essential knowledge, the knowledge of the moment you're in, ilm al-hal. And this is for the Muslim in general, but also for the student of knowledge. That yes, you may be a student of knowledge. You've come to study, but you have a heart that needs healing. You have a lower self that needs restraining. You have blameworthy traits that need removing. You have virtues that you are lacking in. So one of those knowledges that you always need is knowledge of your heart. And a lot of times students of knowledge ignore that. That even tasawwuf, the science of spirituality, they approach it as a theoretical thing. I read this book, and this book. Right? But you are a morally responsible believer, and you are responsible for your personally obligatory knowledge, just like anyone else would be. And that's one critical element. So as a student of knowledge, don't forget that you are standing before Allah. You know, if you die seeking knowledge and you're resurrected, you can't exactly say, Ya Rab, but I was seeking knowledge, so don't have an excuse. No. You're the first person who should know that يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ أي وَلَا شَيْء. Nothing will benefit on the Day of Judgment إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ, except one who comes to Allah with a sound heart. And you, by seeking knowledge, may be susceptible to pride, arrogance, conceit, worldliness, and many other harms. Okay. Then what you need later on. ثم ما يحتاج إليه في المآل. ويقدم علم التوحيد والمعرفة. And one gives precedent to the knowledge of divine oneness and knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because your faith is meant to be a lived meaning. يا أيها الذين آمنوا آمنوا. O you who believe, believe. Right? Those who, because the belief is affirmation, living, and realization. ويعرف الله تعالى بالدليل. And whereby one would know Allah with proof. Whereby one would know Allah Most High with proof. Why? فإن إيمان المقلد وإن كان صحيحا عندنا لكن يكون آثما بترك الاستدلال. Because the belief of one who only believes by mere following, التقليد, even though we hold it, the vast majority of Ahl Sunnah hold it to be valid. However, one is sinful for leaving the taking of means to know why do you believe. Right? And that's important. That doesn't require much. But someone says, well, I'm only interested in fiqh. Right? But again, you're responsible before God, and you build on the foundation of sound faith. You know why you believe, but you also cultivate your faith. Right? Then he also gives this precious advice which deserves to stand on its own. وَيَخْتَارُ الْعَتِيقَ دُونَ الْمُحْدَثَاتِ. One chooses established knowledge. Al-Atiq, literally old knowledge. This is the transmitted knowledge, not newly inaugurated things. If someone says, well, I'm interested in reading research articles about the problems of this and that. There's people who tell you, you know what, I'm researching. They don't even know Mukhtasar al-Quduri, but they're discussing the transmission of fatwa between Balkh and Samarkand. You ask them, where's Balkh? But they don't know where Balkh is. They don't know where Samarkand is. And they don't know why what they're studying is important. And that is, intellectual stimulation, but it's not sacred knowledge. Right? And many fascinations. Someone may get fascinated by, well, I'm gathering manuscripts. Do you need that on the Day of Judgment? كَمَثِلِ الْحِمَارِ, like the donkey, right? Carrying lots of tomes. Or, on the other hand, you may become fascinated by the books of a certain author, etc. Right? So these are also newly inaugurated things. There's things that are popular in general, especially among someone if they are actually a serious student. Right? Amongst the muhdathat, new knowledge is you get fascinated by, like they used to call it Muslim Twitter, what people are making noise about online, or before it used to be called the blogosphere, etc. Don't read any of that. The advice of Shaykh Adib Kallas is don't read any refutations. Right? Acquire knowledge, and you know the answers to the questions, but from within you. Right? Especially during seeking of knowledge. So these are from the muhdathat, the newly inaugurated things. Right? Where you can, you read classical books. Unless it be from the well-established mashayikh, and there's reasons why you do that. But generally, you read the books, contemporary books of the trustworthy ulama. And there's benefits in them because they'll be dealing with issues that perhaps the old books don't deal with, but you choose those on the basis of the recommendations of your teachers. Right? Not just you go to the market, find something interesting, so you read it. قالوا عليكم بالعتيق وإياكم والمحدثات. They said, seek out old knowledge and beware of newly inaugurated things. وإياك أن تشتغل بهذا الجدال الذي ظهر بعد انقراض الأكابر من العلماء. He says, and beware of busying yourself with this argumentation that many of the ulama, many of the people engaged in, the people of knowledge, right, of the disputation, especially after the great senior scholars disappeared. So he's talking in his time that people busied themselves with dispute and argumentation. Some of it can be explicit. There's a debate between this person and that person. But also other matters that really don't concern you. It may be fascinating. There's some podcast they're discussing. For example, you're sick. You're the only reason you're a sister. You're sick of feminism and liberalism and all that. They say, is it of concern to you? I say, no. Sometimes it's also, but it's easier because to prepare for your class, to memorize the terminology, that is heavy. You sit watching something, and it's like a replacement for watching a movie. So-and-so's making this argument, and it's like a movie, but just, people are sitting on chairs, right? And having a discussion. You don't watch a soap opera, you watch a religious soap opera, right? So that's all, that's also a type of debate. When people are discussing, but it's fascinating. They say curiosity killed the cat, and with that, it also killed the seeker of knowledge's focus. Right? Do you hear what Shaykh so-and-so said about so-and-so? Will I be asked about it on the Day of Judgment? No. Is this necessary knowledge? No. Will I be asked about them on the Day of Judgment? No. If he did say something wrong, am I really going to advise them? No. So that's fudul, right? Because what does it do? This was not the way of the early scholars, right? فَإِنَّهُ يُبْعِدُ عَنِ الْفِقْهِ, because it distances one from true religious understanding. Fiqh here in the broader sense. But also from the science of fiqh, because that's what, as he tells us, that's the most important of the sciences. And fiqh is the science that takes most effort to acquire. Okay? You could take a year and a half and study the whole curriculum of theology. But then you go to your community, nobody's going to ask you about infinite regress. But they'll ask you about issues related to buying and selling, and you have no idea because you're snoring through those sessions because you had been staying up all night watching many different things. وَيُضَيِّعُ الْعُمْرِ, and it wastes one's lifetime. وَيُورِثِ الْوَحْشَةِ, and it leads to alienation. وَالْعَدَاوَةِ, and enmity. Because then it becomes a soap opera. How come that sheikh said this? And he seems to be talking about my sheikh and all kinds of, one of the things that you should avoid getting involved in is sheikhology, the sociology of sheikhs. And they may have reasons for what they're saying, maybe not, but it's none of your business. وَهُوَ مِنْ أَشْرَاطِ السَّاعَةِ, and it's from the signs of the end of time. وَارْتِفَاعِ الْعِلْمِ وَالْفِقْهِ, and of the lifting of knowledge and religious understanding. كَذَا وَرَدَ فِي الْحَدِيثِ, and the hadith is in Bukhari and Muslim, that from the signs of the Day of Judgment is that knowledge is lifted and ignorance becomes widespread. Ignorance, of course, is both, jahl is of two types, as we know. There is active ignorance, but there's also عدم العلم عمن شأنه أن يكون عالما, is simply non-knowledge. It's just non-knowledge, right? So non-knowledge is harmful, right? Non-knowledge is harmful. So beware, right? And so part of ignorance is that people take popular bloggers as exemplars. And well, that's on such and such blogging channel. And some of them may be good people. They may be righteous people. They may have elements of sincerity in them. But knowledge is taken from its people. And this from, the science of, from the signs of the end of times that these things arise. So we're wary, right? If you have extra time, have a plan of what am I studying? What am I reading? What am I spending my time doing? And that's one of the things that we should connect with our teachers for. Have a reading plan. Have a reading plan. Even have a listening or watching plan. That, okay, outside of class, there's a religious relaxation. But relax purposefully. Relax purposefully. That, okay, I'll watch a series on the seerah of the Prophet. I'll watch something. I'm studying aqidah, fiqh, science of hadith, heavy subjects. Have something that serves the purpose of purification of the heart, religious inspiration, connects me to the Quran, but is inspiring, it's not heavy. Because some knowledge is great but heavy. I started having bad dreams because I was decided to read Tafsir Abu Saud before going to sleep. And I ended up losing sleep because you can't read Tafsir Abu Saud passively. I had to sit up and unpack it. I got so stressed by unpacking it, I ended up gifting it to my good friend Shaykh Ali Hani. He didn't have Tafsir Abu Saud then. And he's mutilated my copy of Tafsir Abu Saud. That's his copy, alhamdulillah. And then I read a bit of it with him, under him, because he's far more learned than me. And so that's not suitable for relaxation. Right? So you read something else or listen to something else, but you don't just drift online. Okay, so that has to do with focus in terms of one's study. Then he gives us important advice about the choice of teacher. He says, وَأَمَّا اخْتِيَارُ الْأُسْتَاذِ فينبغي أن يختار الأعلم والأورع والأسن كما اختار الإمام أبو حنيفة رضي الله تعالى عنه ونفعنا به حماد بن سليمان رضي الله تعالى عنه بعد التأمل والتفكر. So as for the choice of teacher, one seeks, it is incumbent on the seeker to choose the most knowledgeable and the most scrupulous and the older, as Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah chose Hamad ibn Abi Sulaiman radiyallahu ta'ala anhu after reflection and consideration. وقال وجدته شيخا وقورا حليما صبورا. I found him a sheikh, a man of years, deeply dignified, forbearant, and exceedingly patient. وقال ثبت عند حماد بن أبي سليمان فنبت. I remained firm with him, so I bore fruit. Because they say من ثبت نبت. Imam al-Darqawi said, if you dig in one place and keep digging, despite the toil and weariness, you'll reach water and drink and give to drink. But if you dig here and dig there, you'll keep digging and you'll die of thirst. وقال سمعت حكيما من حكماء سمرقند قال إن واحدا من طلبة العلم شاور معي في طلب العلم وكان قد عزم على الذهاب إلى البخارى لطلب العلم وهكذا ينبغي أن يشاور في كل أمر. In some copies here, there's more available. So he said that one of the people of wisdom, and often hukama would refer to those versed in philosophy, he said that one of the seekers of knowledge consulted me regarding seeking knowledge, and he had resolved to go after to Bukhara to seek knowledge. He said, and this is how it is incumbent to consult in all matters, but you consult before you decide, not after you decide for confirmation. Right? فإن الله تعالى أمر رسوله صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم بالمشاورة في الأمور. Because Allah Most High commanded His Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم to consult in all His affairs. في الأمور أي كلها. ولم يكن أحد أفطن منه صلى الله عليه وسلم. No one was more brilliant of intellect than him, and never shall be. ومع ذلك أمر عليه الصلاة والسلام بالمشاورة, and thus he himself was commanded عليه الصلاة والسلام to consult. وكان عليه الصلاة والسلام يشاور أصحابه في جميع الأمور حتى حوائج البيت, and thus our beloved صلى الله عليه وسلم would consult his companions in all their affairs, even regarding his household needs. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And that's a very important tashri'ah, right? And we should not neglect it. وقال سيدنا علي رضي الله تعالى عنه ما هلك امرؤ من مشورة. Sayyidina Ali karramallahu ta'ala wajhah said that no one was ruined due to consultation. But of course, consulting one who is worthy of consultation, because consultation has four matters. Right? Like anything where there's two parties involved. There's to know what is consultation, who you are as the one consulting, whom you consult, and how you consult. So consultation, what is the purpose? What is consultation? That you want to ask those who know in order for you to make a better decision. That is the purpose of consultation. To ask those who know so you can make a better decision. Or to ask those who would help you make a better decision. So some people, if you consult, you'll make terrible decisions. You go to the masjid and ask the people who are praying, and there are all kinds of random people who come. Should I study with that elderly sheikh? He's so old. But it's Sheikh Muhammad al-Shuqair. That's terrible advice. So you'll ruin yourself because you don't consider, would this person help me make a better decision? No. There's consultation. There's the one consulting. So you know, what is my need? What am I asking about, etc.? Where am I at? Number 3 is whom you are consulting. So you consider how to ask them, when to ask them, where to ask them, and then how you present the question. Because sometimes you may ask in a way that you're sort of forcing the answer. A friend of mine who left his spiritual guide because he said he didn't want to leave seeking knowledge, but he said, my father has a big business. He wants me to take it over. He doesn't like the fact that I'm not earning. They're not so happy with me and this and that, which is not actually the case. So should I continue studying or should I make my father happy? What would anyone say if you present it this way? Whereas, and the facts weren't correct. I know him well. So the Shaykh gave advice based on the question. Anybody would say, make your father happy. So he left. And then he blamed his Shaykh that you ruined my seeking of knowledge. And he left him. Right? So you consider. Sometimes it helps to consult about how to consult. Right? Someone who has more experience than you in asking a teacher, etc. So you ask them about how to ask. Okay. قيل رجل ونصف رجل ولا شيء فالرجل من له رأي صائب ويشاور ونصف رجل من له رأي صائب لكن لا يشاور أو يشاور لكن لا رأي له ولا شيء من لا رأي له ولا يشاور. They said a person is either a complete person or half a person or a nobody. So a complete person is the one who has a good judgment and who consults. Half a person is the one who has good judgment but don't consult. And a nobody is the one who doesn't have good judgment and they don't consult. That's why sometimes it's a blessing to not to have good judgment. Because you reckon, I don't really know, so you always consult. And by consulting, you acquire good judgment. Or at least you don't ruin yourself. At least become half a person rather than being a loser. And then he tells about whom to consult. قال سيدنا الإمام جعفر الصادق رضي الله تعالى عنه لسفيان الثوري رضي الله تعالى عنه شاور في أمر الدين الذين يخشون الله تعالى. So Ja'far al-Sadiq said to Sufyan that consult in the matter of your religion those who have reverent awe of Allah, because that's a sign of beneficial knowledge. إنما يخشى الله من عباده العلماء. Allah is only held in reverent awe amongst His servants by the people of knowledge, which is why Ibn Ata'illah Sakandari radiallahu ta'ala anhu said, العلم إن قارنته خشية فلك. Knowledge, if it comes with reverent awe, then it's for you. And otherwise, وإلا فعليك. Otherwise, it's against you. It's to be feared. Now, you don't judge others. Oh, he doesn't look like he has khashiyah. But you want to benefit from those who you can feel the fact that they have khashiyah. You don't use these kinds of things to judge others, but for you to benefit. So you take the words of the ulama as guides for yourself, but also to help you navigate. But don't judge anybody. Because you're not going to be consulted about them, but your ill judgment of somebody, right? Because maybe some sheikh in public is very jovial with people, etc. Why? Because he's there to help them. One of my teachers, as soon as the prayer would finish, he would go and stand at the door of the masjid because he was not allowed to teach. So he would take the time after the prayer to answer people's questions, give them advice, because then the mukhabarat would come. Even the mukhabarat, the intelligence services, they would do their sunnah in the masjid, do their dhikr, and then go looking for the sheikh. But the sheikh would get 2 minutes, and as soon as he saw the first of the mukhabarat get up, he said shukran, and he'd leave the people. So I just asked him about it, right? And one of the things, if you find something confusing that any of your teachers is doing, just ask them about it with adab, rather than having ill opinion regarding them. And then he says, وَطَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ مِنْ أَعْلَى الْأُمُورِ وَأَصْعَبِهَا فَكَانَتِ الْمُشَاوَرَةُ فِيهِ أَهَمَّ وَأَوْجَبَ. And seeking of knowledge is of the highest of matters. It's العلم طريق إلى المعالي. Knowledge is a path to the highest of matters and the most difficult of matters. That's why the one who heads out seeking knowledge, they're on the path of Allah, they're a mujahid. Thus, consulting about it is more important and more incumbent. قال الحكيم رضي الله تعالى عنه إذا ذهب إلى البخارى فلا ذهبت إلى البخارى فلا تعجل في الاختلاف إلى الأئمة. So this wise man told the student he was talking about earlier, when you go to Bukhara, don't be hasty in going to the gatherings of the scholars. وَامْكُثْ شَهْرَيْن, and remain 2 months. حَتَّى تَتَأَمَّل, until you reflect. وَتَخْتَارَ أُسْتَاذًا, and then you choose a teacher. فإنك إذا إن ذهبت إلى عالم وبدأت بالسبق عنده ربما لا يعجبك درسه فتتركه وتذهب إلى آخر. Because if you just immediately go to a teacher and you begin a lesson with them, you might not find their way of teaching, their lesson appealing. So you leave them and then you go to another. فَلَا يُبَارَكُ لَكَ فِي التَّعَلُّمِ, and you won't be blessed in knowledge, because directly or indirectly that is bad adab with the people of knowledge. There's an adab of how you begin a class, but there's also an adab of how you end a class. And there's an adab of how you maintain a relationship with the teacher you're no longer studying with. Sayyidina Ali said, مَنْ عَلَّمَنِي حَرْفًا سِرْتُ لَهُ عَبْدًا. Anyone who's taught me even a letter, I'm a servant to them. So if someone who just taught you till a month ago, and you have no intention of being in touch with them. Yeah. And they say, Abu Madian said, Man arad as-safa falyalzam al-wafa. Whoever seeks spiritual purity, faith, let them hold fast to being loyal. And one of my teachers and mentors, he mentioned that anyone whom he found breaks relations with their teachers or has ill adab with teachers, even if they differed with them, he says he keeps as far away from them as possible. Because such people, they'll just be trouble with them and from them. Nasallallahu al-afiyah. So he says, فَتَأَمَّلْ فِي شَهْرَيْنِ فِي اخْتِيَارِ الْأُسْتَاذِ. So reflect for 2 months in choosing the teacher. وَشَاوِرْ, and consult. حَتَّى لَا تَحْتَاجَ إِلَى تَرْكِهِ. So you don't have to leave them. وَالْإِعْرَاض عَنْهُ, and that you don't have to turn away from them. فَتَثْبُتَ عِنْدَهُ, so you can remain firm with them. حَتَّى يَكُونَ تَعَلُّمُكَ مُبَارَكًا, so that your seeking knowledge can be then blessed. Because what is barakah? It's a secret of increase. But the secret of increase is that you have capital that is invested. And it's taken care of and cultivated, and then it gives you return on your investment. Right? It gives you return on your time investment. That's the roti, right? The return on time investment. وَيَنْتَفِعُ بِعِلْمِكَ كَثِيرًا, or وَتَنْتَفِعْ بِعِلْمِكَ كَثِيرًا. Then you'll benefit tremendously with knowledge, because you've now established a lengthy relationship with a teacher. So you acquire the knowledge of what they teach you, but you acquire the method of their teaching, but you also benefit from their state and their character and their conduct. وَاعْلَمْ بِأَنَّ الصَّبْرَ وَالثَّبَاتَ أَصْلٌ كَبِيرٌ فِي جَمِيعِ الْأُمُورِ. He says, and know well, and you could write this in gold letters, and know well that steadfastness, sabr. What is sabr? الصبر هو الثبات على مرضات الله. Is to remain firm on whatever is pleasing to Allah. والثبات, and remaining firm. So it goes, and thabat, there's a confirmation of what's meant here by sabr. Is a tremendous, that's why he puts it as one. Aslun. He doesn't say aslani. Notice? He mentions two things, but thabat is a tafsir here of sabr, because sabr has many definitions. You can find them in the Risala al-Qushayriya, etc. Right? Because sabr, there's sabru iman, sabru Islam, and sabru ihsan. There's a steadfastness of faith, submission, and spirituality. That's why from the sabr al-iman is the definition of sabr as being, what's one of the definitions of sabr of iman? Is sabr is tarku shakwa, is to leave complaint. So all you guys who complain about the weather, it's hot, this is contrary to sabr al-iman. Because who made the weather hot? Allah. You should smile when you sweat, because it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? نسأل الله العافية وترك الجنون. لكنه عزيز, but it's rare. And this is in all matters. It's not the smart who succeed, it's the steadfast. Some of the most successful scholars I know weren't that smart. They become very smart. The slowest student that I ever taught is now, one of the most distinguished muftis in Jordan. Why? He stuck it out. Whenever I go to Jordan, I ask him many, many, many questions, because he has so much experience in fatwa. Very beneficial. He's a student of mine, but I listen to his lessons often, especially on topics where he's a lot of experience in. There's always lots of benefit in them. لَكِنَّهُ عَزِيز. However, steadfastness and remaining firm on what is of benefit is rare indeed. كما قيل في الرجال لكل شأو. Right? As has been said, لكل إلى الشأو والعلا حركات لكن عزيز في الرجال ثبات. Said all have aspiration to high attainment, and all seek to direct themselves to high matters, but exceedingly rare in people is the remaining firm. وقيل الشجاعة صبر ساعة. And it is said that courage is a moment of steadfastness. Is that when you waver, you just stay firm. And how do you stay firm? Consult before making any critical step in your life. You want to leave a class? Consult. I wanted, after the first month of class with my dearly beloved teacher, Shaykh Hassan, and maybe 2 months, I wanted to quit. Because Shaykh Hassan paid no attention to us. Literally, we'd be doing class, and he'd be doing his morning dhikr. And he says, Eid al-Ibara, said, repeat the expression. I was like, I walked up the hill. It'd take 15-minute walk up the hill, and I was busy gaining weight. I put on almost 30, 40 kilos in Damascus. It's hard work. So I was like, what's going on? And sometimes we'd read like 15 minutes, نكتفي بهذا القدر. I'm like, sometimes we go up the hill, and he'd say, عفوا ما في درس اليوم والله متعب. But you consult. So I went to Sheikh Ashraf Munib, said, Sayyidi, what's going on? I want to leave the class. He said, stick, and he'll make you time. And we reached the stage, subhanAllah, we'd have 15, 16 hours a week with Sheikh Hassan. He said, okay, we want to add this text. I said, Sheikh, please don't. He said, Okay, نقرأ الفصل القادم كمان. We'll read the next section. Say, Sheikh, please. No. He says, خلينا نكمل. Let's finish. I said, no. Right? And we had to like convince him. There's a few subjects that he wanted to cover. I said, please don't. Like, بدنا نتنفس شوي. We want to breathe a little bit. But, you know, but of course you listen to your teachers. A bunch of stuff I didn't want to do, but he insisted. And I protested privately, not with the other students. They say, I don't want to do tajweed. I'm never going to teach it. But he forced us to cover the text. And of course, agreed and gave it its due. It's been very beneficial. I still find myself thinking, okay, what did Shaykh Islam Zaki Ansari say on his sharh on al-Muqaddimah al-Jazariyah? Oh yeah, okay. You hear someone say something weird and like, huh? So he says, فَيَنْبَغِي أَنْ يَثْبُتَ وَيَصْبُرْ عَلَى أُسْتَاذ. So therefore it's befitting that they remain firm and steadfastly patient with a teacher, وَعَلَى كِتَاب, and upon a text. Because, for example, it's often the case that there are certain chapters that a teacher may not be so strong at. But you continue with them and you'll benefit from them. Those chapters, you could also do it again with somebody else. Right? You could also do them with somebody else. Right? Because that's just the nature of knowledge. Nobody knows everything. Right? But also just to consult in all those things. حتى لا يتركه أبتر, so that one does not leave it cut off. وعلى فن, and to remain steadfast on a science. حتى لا يشتغل بفن آخر قبل أن يتقن الأول, such that one does not leave one science for another until they've mastered that science. So if you start studying a subject, keep going in it. And of course, according to the guidance of a teacher. At some point, a teacher may say, you've studied enough aqidah, now do a little bit of this. But you don't leave that science. One of the ways not leaving it, you may not be taking a class in it, but you're constantly reviewing what you have already attained. That's also from not leaving a science. Right? وَعَلَى بَلَدٍ, and on a land. حَتَّى لَا يَنْتَقِلْ إِلَى بَلَدٍ آخَر مِنْ غَيْرِ ضَرُورَةٍ. So you don't leave one land to another. There's lots of scholars there because the grass is always greener on the other side. But it's not. Grass is grass wherever it may be. فَإِنَّ ذَلِكَ كُلَّهُ يُفَرِّقُ الْأُمُورِ, because all of that scatters one's affairs. وَيُشْغِلُ الْقَلْبِ, right? It busies the heart. Or يَشْغَلُ الْقَلْبِ. وَيُضَيِّعُ الْأَوْقَاتِ, and it wastes one's time. وَيُؤَذِّي الْمُعَلِّمِ, and it hurts the teacher. Right? Because they're investing your time in you. They're investing their time in you. But of course, many people don't need to worry about wasting time because they're already wasting time as it is. One of the shuyukh was saying, these Westerners have this strange habit. They take a day off for their family. He says, can you tell them this is not something we do in ilm? I said, they take he said, it's not just the day they take off, right? What's off, is already off. Right? وَيَنْبَغِي أَنْ يَصْبِرَ عَمَّا تُرِيدُ نَفْسُهُ, and وَهَوَاهُ, and one has to hold oneself steadfastly patient with whatever their lower self and their wishes. Right? Their lower self is your desires. I like good coffee. I want good coffee. I want this. I want this. The whims is, why not? So you're headed home. You want to pray Isha in the masjid, do your nighttime routine, do a little bit of study, go to sleep. But let's go grab whatever, some slices of pizza at such a place. You go, you miss Isha in Jama'ah, you miss your night routine of study. You don't get up for Qiyam al-Layl, you might not make it to the masjid for Fajr. Right? وَهَوَاهُ, that's the whim. Why not? قال الشاعر إن الهوى لهو الهوان بعينه صريع كل هوى صريع هوان. Indeed, whim is abasement in itself. Right? The call of all whim is the call of abasement. وَيَصْبِرُ عَلَى الْمِحَنِ وَالْبَلِيَّاتِ. Likewise, you have to be patient with tribulations, with trials and tribulations. Because that's life. And the more noble your pursuit, the greater the tests there will be for it. A man came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, O Messenger of Allah, I love you. The Prophet ﷺ said, be careful of what you say. The man repeated that, O Messenger of Allah, by Allah, I love you. He said, be careful what you say. He repeated 3 times. The Prophet ﷺ said, then be ready for tests, because tests come down upon one who loves me more surely than water comes down from a steep hill. أشد الناس بلاءً الأنبياء ثم الأمثل فالأمثل. The people most intensely tested are the prophets, and then the foremost after them, then the foremost after them. As a seeker of knowledge, you're on the path of the scholars. The scholars are the inheritors of the prophets, and they're the most tested. You'll be of the most tested people. Prepare. Right? But as they say, كفوف الحبيب ما أحلاها. The slaps of the beloved, how sweet they are. Once there's a friend of mine who used to be a former gangster. He objected to an answer online. So I was pretty tough with him in the response. He said, Shaykh, you're tough on me in responding to me, but why do I feel that you care about me? Do you love me? The British guy, scary. He spent time in jail. I said, you know better than me that love is not all just hugs and kisses. He said, Shaykh, you're getting risque. I said, I didn't say anything risque. It's your imagination. He said, I get it. I don't know what he got, but I had a noble intention. He says, قِيلَ خَزَائِنُ الْمُنَى عَلَى قَنَاطِيرِ الْمِحَنِ. It is said that the treasures of what is sought are reached on the bridges of tribulation. The treasures sought are on the bridges of tribulation. Right? وأنشدت وقيل إنه لعلي بن أبي طالب رضي الله تعالى عنه, and it was related to me in poetry, and that's one of the teaching devices of the scholars that memorize a lot of poetry. And you should write down the things your teachers say. Don't just tweet them or whatever you're using these days, but write it down. Review what your teachers say, because this is a hasila from them. And then share it, of course, not to boast. I relate from fulan and fulan, but inna ad'u ila Allah. I'm calling to Allah. And of course, most of the poetry ascribed to Sayyidina Ali bin Abi Talib is not established from Sayyidina Ali bin Abi Talib. Right? Even there's things like the Diwan of Ali bin Abi Talib, radiallahu anhu, most of it is not established from him. There are things that are related from him in the works of hadith. That's what's established. Likewise, Nahjul Balagha is very eloquent, but it does not have sound chains of transmission. Now there's wisdom in it, one can take it, but there's also things in there that we know for sure contradict what is well established from Sayyidina Ali bin Abi Talib. So it's not something you rush to seek out. So it's related from him. Or so it's said, ألا لا تنال العلم إلا بستة سأنبيك عن مجموعها ببياني. Truly, you shall not attain knowledge except with 6 that I'll tell you about with full clarity. ذكاء وحرص واصطبار وبلغة وإرشاد أستاذ وطول زمان. Right? Intelligence, avidness, steadfast patience, sufficient provision, the guidance of a teacher, and long time. So these are 6 things needed for knowledge. And this is the kind of stuff that's worth retaining and memorizing. The 6 things. Right? You can find them in the text or the translation. And even if you're attending in person, if you register for the course online, which is for free, of course, where we're putting up the slides day by day, and you can find these things in the poetry. We've translated some of it. What are the 6? Intelligence. Now you say, I'm dumb. Well, firstly, you should never say things like that, because Yani, the strong believer is better and more beloved to Allah than the weak believer, though there's good in both. Be avid for what benefits you. احرص على ما ينفعك واستعن بالله ولا تعجز. Be avid for what benefits you. Seek that which will be of the greatest, widest, and most lasting benefit for you and others in dunya and deen. Given your circumstances, with consideration and consultation. That's being avid for what benefits, according to the ulama. I heard this from one of my teachers. He started explaining it. I hung up the phone on him. I'm probably one of the few people who's ever hung up the phone on my teacher, because saying something very beneficial, but I was on a corded phone, couldn't reach my pen and paper. So I hung up the phone, got pen and paper, called him back. Assalamu alaikum, Sayyidi. The phone line got cut. I cut it, but sigat al-majhul. And then I wrote down, right? So being avid for what benefits you, to seek that which will be of the greatest, widest, and most lasting benefit for you and others in dunya and deen, directly and indirectly, on the basis of consideration and consultation. Wasta'in billah, and then place your trust. If that is what's good, then pursue it. Right? Wasta'in billah, and seek Allah's assistance. Wala ta'jaz, don't deem yourself incapable. If that is the right thing to do, right? Of course, and the people of the spiritual path express this in very high ways. وَتَلَافِي إِنْ كَانَ فِيهِ ائْتِلَافِي فَعَجِّلْ بِهِ جُعِلْتُ فِدَاكَ. Right? My ruin, if it will result in my reaching you, hasten it, for I am yours alone. Of course, they said don't ask for things like that unless you really mean it, but being purposeful is the way of anyone of worthy aspiration. And then what about the choice of companion? And this is, of course, one of the most important of matters. He says, وَأَمَّا اخْتِيَارُ الشَّرِيكِ فَيَنْبَغِي أَن تَخْتَارَ الْمُجِدِّ الْوَرِعَ وصاحب الطبع المستقيم والمتفقه. We have المتفقه. What do you have? والمتفهم. They missed a letter today. I actually went to a bookstore today, and I warned them for the sake of Allah. I said, I have a dua that all these bookstores that are, these publishing houses that are doing a disservice to the inheritance of the Prophet ﷺ, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that either rectify your affairs or that Allah do away with you and replace you with that which will preserve our deen. Because if our Salaf had this attitude with the Quran and the Sunnah and religious teachings, our deen would not have come to us right now. He said, Shaykh, that's very intense. I said, I'm saying it out of nasiha. So one of them walked with me all the way from the bookstore till here. So what do you mean? I said, you do what you do you. Like, I didn't say that, but like that. You do what you want, but this is not how the deen is served. Right? This is not how the deen is served. So he says, choosing your companion, you should choose the one who strives, al-mujid, who's scrupulous, who's careful about their religious affairs, and the one who has a sound temperament. They make good life choices. Right? They don't choose foolish or blameworthy things. You're a student of knowledge. What are you doing following the transfer market in whatever sport? The one who seeks to understand matters. What do you think about ilm, deen, Allah, al-Rasul? وَيَفِرُّ مِنَ الْكَسْلَانِ وَالْمُعَطِّلِ وَالْمِكْثَارِ وَالْمُفْسِدِ وَالْفَتَّانِ. And one flees. It's not just avoids, one flees from the lazy, the one who's up to nothing, the one who just is interested in amassing things. What's your reading plan? Buying books, not reading them. And the one who spreads corruption. Did you hear this? Did you hear that? See what Sheikh so-and-so said? Oh, look, he attacked his former peer. Wal-Fattan, who spreads fitnas. قال الشاعر عن المرء لا تسأل وأبصر قرينه فإن القرين بالمقارن يقتدي. Don't ask about a person, but ask about their close companions, because a companion is inevitably following their companions. فإن كان ذا شر فجانبه سرعة. And if the companions of a person are people of ill, then keep away from them immediately. وإن كان ذا خير فقارنه تهتدي. And if a person keeps the company of the people of good, then keep their company and you too shall be guided. Right? وأنشدت لا تصحب الكسلان في حالاته كم صالح بفساد آخر يفسد. Never keep the company of the lazy in their affairs. Let's go chill out. Let's this. Right? The one who's lazy is the one من لا يشتغل بما يعنيه. Right? The one who does not busy themselves with what is of concern to them, that's a lazy person. So if you're a student of knowledge, anybody whose primary concern isn't seeking knowledge, with respect to you, it's a lazy person. Right? And they may not be lazy, but in your context, they're lazy because you always run into them. Your classes start in the afternoon. They study all day and then they take a break for 3 hours. You only meet them for those 3 hours. So you get the bad side of them. And people have multiple faces. You just hit their lazy face. Because how many a good person was corrupted by the corruption of another. عدوى البليد إلى الجليد سريعة. The ailment of the fool to the serious person comes quickly. كالجمر يوضع في الرماد فيخمد. Just like a burning coal is put on sand and it becomes heated. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كل مولود يولد على الفطرة وعلى فطرة الإسلام إلا أن أبويه يهودانه وينصرانه ويمجسانه, except that it is their parents who turn them into. So every child is born on the fitrah of Islam, except that it is their parents who turn them into a Jew or a Christian or a Magian. The hadith. ويقال في الحكمة بالفارسية, and there's lines of poetry in Farisi, I will not translate them. And then it's said about whom to consult. إن كنت تبغي العلم وأهله وشاهدا يخبر عن غائب فاعتبر الأرض بأسمائها واعتبر الصاحب بالصاحب. That if you seek knowledge and its people, or are a witness reporting from one absent, then consider the earth by its names and consider the companion by their companions, and consider a companion by their companions. So there's a number of things to consider here, right? Just to review what we've taken in this section, because it's very important. The first is that seek with purpose, right? Seek knowledge with purpose, right? This is very important. Don't just drift. Secondly, choose your teacher very carefully with consideration and consultation. And one of the ways is you should have senior mentors that guide you in your broad knowledge choices and who help you lay out your study plan. And then you may ask about particulars, but then you may have mentors in particular subjects, but sometimes a subject area expert, all they see is their subject. So the advice they give, you go to the more general mentor or mentors that you consult about your overall plan to help put things in places, in their due place. We should always have a plan. Yes, it has come from the Prophet ﷺ that there's much that's understood from the Sunnah about not over-planning things and trying to control outcomes, right? From which Ibn Ata'illah said that that إِرِحْ نَفْسَكَ مِنَ التَّدْبِير, relieve yourself of self-direction, right? Of trying to control outcomes, right? But it also come in the Sunnah. Hadith has some weakness, but the ulama said that at the very least the meaning is sound, and some said that it's a sound hadith. Wallahu alam. It's related by Tabarani and Quda'i and others that Husnul Tadbir nisful ma'isha, that good planning is half of livelihood, half of good living. Good planning is to plan out defining desired outcomes, to plan out how to attain desired outcomes. Because good planning is having hope. Because what is hope? Hope has two elements: seeking desired outcomes with the taking of the means that would get you there. من أراد الآخرة وسعى لها سعيها. Whoever seeks the hereafter and strives for it with the striving befitting it, كان سعيه مشكورا. Their striving will be recognized. Right? لمن كان يرجو الله واليوم الآخر. Whoever has hope for Allah in the last day. That's not just wishful thinking. I want Allah. No. Hope is you seek what is worthy of seeking, but then you have a plan to get there. You say, I'm going to climb the mountain. What route you're going to take? No idea. You're not going to make it. Next. So you plan out who you study with, the choice of subjects, the choice of texts. You hold yourself to steadfastness, patience, and consistency. And one of those things is to have the teachers, the companions, the mentors that help you on that journey. Right? And the choice of companions in the path of knowledge is very important. The choice of companions in life are critical. It is one of the bid'ahs of our age is that people spend time alone. We keep away from bad company, but we must seek out good company. Good company is like the water without which you cannot swim. Right? It is absolutely critical. We don't say, ihdini as-sirat al-mustaqim. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Guide us to the straight path. Ittaqullah wa kunu ma'as sadiqeen. O you believe, be mindful of Allah and be with those who are true. Look for them. Right? Look for them and you will find them because they're there. Allah would not command us to be with them if they're not around. Wallahu subhanahu wa ta'ala a'lam. After this, we have an important chapter. So this required some extra exposition, is on the importance of respect for knowledge and its people. The importance of respect for knowledge and its people. So he says, rahimahullah ta'ala, في تعظيم العلم وأهله. اعلم بأن طالب العلم لا ينال العلم ولا ينتفع به إلا بتعظيم العلم وأهله وتعظيم الأستاذ وتوقيره. Know well that the seeker of knowledge will not attain knowledge, nor benefit from it, now or in the future, except by having deep, unshakable reverence for knowledge and for its people, the ulama and your fellow students of knowledge. وَتَعْظِيمِ الْأُسْتَاذ, and deep, unshakable reverence and deep respect for them. Of course, that's not tokenism. A lot of people have tokenism, which is Shaykhna, Seedna, you kiss their hand, or the sister, stands there all polite, Jazakumullah khair, Shaykh, etc. But then the Shaykh says something, one opinion you don't like, said that Shaykh, he's this and that. No. Right? Right? And this is very rare. Especially, it's always rare, but especially in our times, because this is from the weakness of the hearts of men are weak. وقيل ما وصل من وصل إلا بالحرمة وما سقط من سقط إلا بترك الحرمة. And it said that no one who attained except by upholding inviolability. Allah is inviolable in our respect, and all the symbols of Allah are inviolable. And no one fell of those who fell except by leaving this sense of hurma, of inviolable sanctity. وَقِيلَ الْحُرْمَةُ خَيْرٌ مِنَ الطَّاعَةِ. And they said that having the sense of sanctity is more important than obedience. You respect your teacher, but you didn't quite manage to do what they did, is more important than you do what they did and drag your feet and say, I don't know why the Shaykh makes us do all this stuff. Right? It's better to be a respectful slacker than hardworking, but with disrespect or lack of respect. ألا ترى إن الإنسان لا يكفر بالمعصية وإنما يكفر بترك الحرمة. Do you not see that a person does not commit kufr by sin, but they do commit kufr by disrespect of the symbols of religion? And then he says, وَمِن تَعْظِيمِ الْعِلْمِ تَعْظِيمُ الْمُعَلِّمِ. And from the respect for knowledge is having of this ta'zim, this unshakable deep respect for one's teacher. قال سيدنا علي رضي الله تعالى عنه أنا عبد من علمني حرفا واحدا. I am the servant, said Sayyidina Ali, of the one, the slave of one who teaches me even one letter. Right? And once Shaykh Khalid made me call one of my friends. Actually record a voice message. And he's like, Fulan. And he mentioned his name. أين أنت؟ درسناك. He said, we taught you, we spent time together. We drank tea together. We think about you, we pray for you, but we never hear from you. We send you messages. You don't respond to them. So we just want assalamu alaikum from you. I felt so bad. He said, did you record it? Say yes. Say send it. I said, inshallah. Say hella. He said, now. I felt so bad. But you listen. Ironic, I never studied with Shaykh Khalid in Damascus, but that brother did. But alhamdulillah. So Sayyidina Ali continued, if they wish, they may sell me, and if they wish, they may free me. وَأُنْشِدْتُ فِي ذَلِكَ شِعْرًا. And I heard poetry regarding this. رأيت أحق الحق حق المعلم وأوجبه حفظا على كل مسلم. I see that the greatest right is the right of the teacher and more incumbent to guard than any for every Muslim. لقد حق أن يهدى إليه كرامة لتعليم حرف واحد ألف درهم. It is befitting that you gift to them out of honoring them for teaching you even one issue 1,000 dirhams, making a lot of money. فإن من علمك حرفا واحدا مما تحتاج إليه في الدين فهو أبوك في الدين. Because the one who teaches you even one issue that you need in your religion, they're your father in deen. وكان أستاذنا الشيخ الشيخ الإمام سديد الدين الشيرازي رحمه الله يقول, this great scholar سديد الدين الشيرازي would say, كان مشايخنا قال مشايخنا من أراد أن يكون ابنه عالما ينبغي أن يراعي الغرباء من الفقهاء ويكرمهم ويعظمهم ويعطيهم شيئا فإن لم يكن ابنه عالما يكون حافظه عالما أو حفيده عالما. Whoever wants their child to be a scholar, it is incumbent upon them to carefully pay attention to the strangers of the fuqaha, the strangers, those estranged from their lands or from sources of income, and to honor them and to venerate them and to give them something out of this, not to help them, but out of honoring them. And then if their child is not a scholar, then their grandchild will be a scholar. And then their outward adab that express of this, that ومن توقير المعلم أن لا يمشي أمامه ولا يجلس مكانه. From the respect of a teacher is that you don't walk ahead of them and that you don't sit in their place. ولا يبتدئ الكلام عنده إلا بإذنه, and that you don't begin speech in their presence except with their permission. One of the biggest, the ulama are smart and they sort of test your smarts. So often if you go meet with them, they'll let you speak. If you're not that smart, they'll just let you speak. They get to relax a little bit. How are things going? And the person will keep talking. I have one of my teachers. He's a master of this. Like sometimes, and I'm attentive to it. We have an hour meeting. He'll spend 45 minutes asking me questions. And I say, Sheikh, bad, the whole hour's worth of questions. I said, I have another appointment coming up. Right? But you want to benefit from them. ولا يكثر الكلام عنده. Don't speak a lot in their presence. ولا يسأل شيئا عند ملالته. And don't ask them something when they're tired. ويراعي الوقت. And be watchful of time with them. ولا يدق الباب بل يصبر حتى يخرج. And don't knock on their door. And this applies when they're about to come out. Don't rush them, but rather be patient till they come out. فالحاصل أنه يطلب رضاه ويجتنب سخطه. And in summary, one seeks, right? One seeks their pleasure. As Abu Madian said, وَفِي رِضَاهُ رِضَى الْبَارِ وَطَاعَتِهِ. In their good pleasure is the good pleasure of God and His obedience. And to avoid their displeasure. وَيَمْتَثِلُ أَمْرَهُ. And you listen to their instructions. مِنْ غَيْرِ مَعْصِيَةِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. In other than the disobedience of Allah. وَلَا طَاعَةَ لِمَخْلُوقٍ فِي مَعْصِيَةِ الْخَالِقِ. For there's no obedience to creation in disobedience to the Creator. كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إن أشر الناس من يذهب دينه لدنيا غيره. For the worst of people, said the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, are those who lose their deen for someone else's dunya. بمعصية الخالق. And through disobedience of the Creator. ومن توقيره توقير أولاده ومن يتعلق به. And from respect for one's teacher is respect for their family, their children, and those associated with them. These are the students of so-and-so. So you respect them out of love for your teacher. Right? And you also be loyal to them and take care of them. Right? And assist them. Particularly, they have greater rights upon you than others. As we know, our beloved Prophet ﷺ would honor the family of Sayyidah Halima radiallahu ta'ala anha. Ibn Tulun has an excellent book on Sayyidah Halima radiallahu ta'ala anha and her Islam. And the family of Sayyidah Halima Ibn Tulun radiallahu ta'ala rahimahullah ta'ala. وقال أستاذنا شيخ الإسلام برهان الدين صاحب الهداية يحكى أن واحدا من كبار أئمة بخارى كان يجلس مجلس الدرس. So he relates from his teacher, the author of the Hidayah, Imam al-Marghinani, that one of his teachers would sit in his place of teaching. وكان يقوم في خلال الدرس أحيانا, and would sometimes stand up during the lesson. فسألوه عنه, and they would ask regarding it, why do you just get up suddenly and sit down in your lesson? قال إن ابن أستاذي يلعب مع الصبيان في السكة ويجيء أحيانا إلى باب المسجد فإذا رأيته أقوم تعظيما لأستاذي. Said that the son of my teacher would be playing in the street with his with other children, and sometimes he'd come to the door of the masjid. So when he was at the door of masjid, out of respect for my teacher, I would get up for him. Right? And then he mentions other examples of this matter, right? But you see, this is an Islamic value, that it's from birr al-walidain to have birr for their friends. It's from being good to one's parents to be good to their friends. Right? The Prophet ﷺ would give gifts to the friends of Sayyidah Khadija many years after their passing. And I know there's a family that's, the friend of my father's who's very close to my father, so much so that the day that his friend passed away, my father had a lucid dream all night of his friend giving him parting advice. And the dream ended with the friend saying, Farid, it's now time to go. And he gave my father parting advice and he closed the door. And that's when they got a phone call. His friend's wife called my father in the middle of the night before she called her own son. But the son stays in contact with my parents week in, week out, consults them, even though the son is, 6-7 years older than me, right? But he probably consults my father more than I do, right? But that's loyalty to the friends of your parents, and likewise one's teachers, right? One's teachers, and one has attention for them, care for them, concern for them, right? And these are religious values that we live in our relationships. We live these values with our parents. We strive to live these values with our siblings, with our friends. We strive to live these values with our teachers, with our neighbors. Deen is akhlaq. And we strive to live the highest of them, particularly in the most critical of relations. And that's why the books of Adab al-Suhbah, the etiquette of good company are so important, right? So we'll continue from here. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina wa nabiyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Inshallah, we'll do our best to start right on time. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.